like a whole. He's built like a female. Am I saying something wrong? He's built like a girl. Nah. He has girl hips. He's like a full WNBA player.
Gilbert Arenas didn't hold back. He absolutely unloaded on Karl-Anthony Towns during a podcast episode that's now setting the internet ablaze. But just when you thought the fire was dying down, a new video clip surfaced, showing the situation getting even more explosive. Now it's not just a basketball debate, it's personal. Social media is lighting up, fans are drawing battle lines, and things are spiraling fast. Let's unpack exactly how this feud ignited. Before we dive into the intense verbal battle, it's important to understand what set the wheels in motion. The drama began in the aftermath of a crushing playoff defeat. The New York Knicks had finally broken a 25-year curse by reaching the Eastern Conference Finals in the 2024-2025 NBA season. Their journey was largely credited to their high-profile acquisition of Karl-Anthony Towns, who joined from the Minnesota Timberwolves before the season tipped off. But dreams turned to disappointment quickly. The Knicks were eliminated by the Indiana Pacers, and questions started swirling about Towns' performance, especially on the defensive end. Reports began to surface that Knicks players and staff were quietly frustrated with Towns' defensive lapses and poor on-court communication. And the numbers backed up the criticism. The Pacers shot a blistering 47.7% from beyond the arc when Towns was on the court, compared to just 30.4% when he was on the bench. Suddenly, the spotlight was less about his offense and more about what he wasn't doing on the other end of the floor. Then came June 4th, 2025, the day Gilbert Arenas took things from critical to controversial. Known for his unfiltered takes, Arenas launched into a commentary that went far beyond basketball critique. During what began as a routine podcast discussion, Arenas turned his attention to Towns' body type and appearance, saying things no analyst dared say publicly. Here's a rephrased version of what he said.
Just put Cat up there so we can just be educated after on Cat himself. It's him. It's his physical makeup. Long legs, short torso, big feet. There's nothing he can do. He's built like a whole. He's built like a female. Am I saying something wrong? He's built like a girl. Nah. He has girl hips. He's like a full WNBA player.
Those words instantly went viral, and for all the wrong reasons. It wasn't just a critique. It was a deeply personal and misogynistic attack, offensive not just to Towns, but also to female athletes everywhere. This wasn't your typical bad defense or low-effort narrative. Arenas' rant used anatomy and gender stereotypes to discredit a professional athlete, and in doing so, reinforced outdated ideas about masculinity, toughness, and athleticism. Many fans and analysts were quick to call it out for what it was, crossing the line into disrespectful and toxic territory. To truly understand the weight of this insult, consider who KAT is. Standing 7 feet tall and weighing in at 248 pounds, Towns just wrapped up one of the strongest seasons of his career. He averaged 24.4 points and 12.8 rebounds in the regular season, earning a spot on the All-NBA third team. In the playoffs, he maintained high-level production with 24.8 points and 12.2 rebounds per game. That's elite by any standard. But Towns represents more than just stats. He's part of the modern era of big men who can stretch the floor and knock down shots from deep. His career three-point percentage of 39.8% ranks him as one of the best shooting centers in NBA history. Towns symbolizes how the game has evolved, where centers are no longer just post-up bruisers, but agile, versatile threats from anywhere on the court. But that evolution has made him a target. Throughout his career, he's been labeled as soft or not physical enough, critiques that seem less about performance and more about failing to fit a traditional, hyper-masculine mold. What Arenas did was take those coded criticisms and make them explicit, turning basketball analysis into body-shaming and gendered mockery. Ever since Karl-Anthony Towns made the leap from the Minnesota Timberwolves to the New York Knicks, a stubborn narrative has trailed him, that his offensive brilliance is overshadowed by his defensive shortcomings. No matter how well he scores or stretches the floor, critics continue to fixate on what he supposedly lacks on the other end. Into this ongoing debate stepped Gilbert Arenas, a former NBA standout whose own career was a roller coaster of glory and controversy. A three-time All-Star, Arenas put up career averages of 20.7 points, 5.3 assists, and 4.2 rebounds over 11 seasons. Between 2004 and 2007, he averaged an astonishing 27.7 points per game, solidifying himself as one of the league's most dynamic guards. But injuries and off-the-court scandals eventually sent his career into a nosedive. Post-retirement, Arenas rebranded himself as a sharp-tongued commentator. His podcast, Gil's Arena, quickly earned a reputation for controversial takes that often toe the line between bold and reckless. In the saturated world of sports media, Arenas uses provocation as his trademark tool, sparking conversation, headlines, and virality. But on June 4, 2025, Arenas crossed into territory that most fans and analysts agreed was beyond unacceptable. While discussing Towns' playoff performance, he launched into a critique that turned disturbingly personal, veering away from skill-based analysis into demeaning anatomical commentary. The moment was quickly clipped and uploaded to platforms like X, formerly Twitter, with major sports pages like @DunkCentral and @US Sports spreading the content rapidly. Within mere hours, the video had amassed hundreds of thousands of views, but not for the right reasons. The public response was swift and brutal. Users on X and across social media platforms called out Arenas for going way beyond sports criticism. His remarks weren't just deemed harsh, they were labeled vile, repulsive, and deeply inappropriate. What made the backlash so intense wasn't just the disrespect. It was the underlying message in Arenas' words. When he said Towns was built like a female or compared him to WNBA players in a derogatory way, he wasn't just challenging his game. He was reinforcing toxic gender stereotypes. In a world where male athletes are constantly expected to meet outdated standards of hypermasculinity, Arenas' comments served as a reminder of how fragile masculinity is still policed in sports culture. His attack didn't just belittle Towns, it insulted women athletes by treating femininity as a punchline. Indiana Fever forward Brianna Turner stepped into the spotlight with a pointed critique of Gilbert Arenas' comments. She labeled his remarks as deeply misogynistic, emphasizing that by comparing Towns to a woman as a form of insult, Arenas wasn't just targeting a single player. He was demeaning an entire gender and discrediting an entire professional league. Turner's response triggered a wider dialogue about how often femininity is used as a tool to shame men in the world of sports. As the conversation caught fire across mainstream and digital media, it became evident this wasn't just another fleeting hot take moment. The language Arenas used struck a cultural nerve, challenging the way gender, respect, and platform responsibility intersect in sports commentary. This was no longer just about basketball, it was about how far commentary can go before it becomes harmful. With the controversy growing louder, all eyes turned to Karl-Anthony Towns. In the age of instant reactions and online clapbacks, many expected an explosive response. Athletes today are often urged to respond immediately, to defend themselves on social media with passion and precision. But Towns didn't rush to respond. Instead, he waited, and then answered in a way no one expected. Towns chose a response that was minimal, classy, and cutting all at once. He posted an Instagram story showing Gilbert Arenas with painted nails, a subtle yet devastating image. The post was widely interpreted as a direct and poetic counterpunch to Arenas' attack on Towns' appearance and masculinity. In that single image, Towns did what pages of rebuttals couldn't. While Arenas had spent minutes lashing out using problematic gendered language, Towns flipped the narrative with a single frame. The message was clear: hypocrisy exposed. Here was Arenas mocking feminine features while embracing them himself in the past. Social media lit up with praise for Towns' restraint and intelligence. His approach was seen as elevated and graceful, a masterstroke that avoided further confrontation while still making a powerful point. In a world that often confuses loudness with strength, Towns proved that poise is power. What truly set Towns apart was his refusal to escalate. His measured reaction highlighted his emotional maturity, sending a message far stronger than rage ever could. Instead of diving into the same shallow pool of insults, Towns showed what real confidence looks like, the kind rooted in knowing who you are, not who others think you should be. Towns' response wasn't just classy, it was strategic. In a media landscape where viral content shapes public opinion, he managed to reclaim the narrative without looking petty. Arenas' attack turned into a self-inflicted wound, while Towns emerged with more respect than ever. Those hoping Arenas might reflect or apologize were disappointed. Instead of backing off, he returned on June 5, 2025, with another episode of Gil's Arena, where he tried to explain and defend his previous remarks. Arenas attempted to justify his stance, saying, "We were just talking about his defensive struggles, that's all. His body type is just different. It's not how a male basketball player usually looks." He repeated the now infamous line about Towns having Mary J. Blige hips and doubled down on the comments about leg length, torso size, and foot shape, turning anatomy into mockery. Rather than owning the offense his words had caused, Arenas tried to reframe his criticism as scientific or objective, saying his points were about physical traits affecting defense. But the continued use of female comparison as ridicule only reaffirmed how tone-deaf and damaging his perspective truly was. This follow-up made one thing painfully clear. Arenas didn't get the message, or didn't care to. Instead of recognizing the disrespect in his original commentary, he buried himself deeper in defense mode, bringing up irrelevant anatomy and doubling down on sexist stereotypes. It was a missed opportunity to show growth, and instead, it revealed a disturbing unwillingness to reflect. Gilbert Arenas claimed that ACL injuries are more common among women due to the broader distance between their hips and knees, a supposed anatomical flaw. He extended this logic to critique Karl-Anthony Towns, arguing that Towns' long legs and compact torso resemble that of a female model's body proportions, suggesting this structure made him a poor defender. Arenas insisted he had simply noticed this trait and concluded that Towns' biomechanics made him unable to keep pace defensively.
And when you look at the makeup, if anybody has, and you look up a model, when you're looking for the ideal model, woman model, it would be exactly what I said. Small torso, long legs. Unfortunately, I spotted it, and that's why I said, well, physically, maybe he just can't keep up because of the structure of his body.
Rather than clarifying his stance, Arenas worsened the situation by dressing up his personal attacks as biomechanics analysis. Underneath all the jargon, the real issue remained. He was using female comparisons as veiled insults, implying that femininity equates to weakness in male athletes. This framing not only demeaned Towns, but also disrespected women in sports by implying their physical attributes are inferior by default. In an even more baffling twist, Arenas claimed he was actually supporting Towns. "He's a good player," Arenas said. "You just need to understand he can't move the way he wants to, because of his build." He presented this as a defense rooted in anatomy, saying his remarks were about structural limitations, not personality or toughness. This so-called defense came across as disingenuous and hollow. Arenas framed his insulting remarks as concern for Towns' biomechanics, as if suggesting someone is built like a woman could ever be interpreted as constructive.